If you want to know how you can change the world, stay with me. Hi, and welcome to the UNCON School at howtobecomeaprofessor.com, the web show to learn from unconventional professors and experts. My name is Stefan and I'm your host. Today we're having a jaw-dropping and inspiring episode for you. Today you will learn the blueprint for how to change the world, or how to make the most impact on the world depending on your interests, talents, and desires. I've invited John Paul Flintoff on the show, who is an author, writer, and broadcaster, and I've come across this precious book here with the title How to Change the World by John Paul Flintoff in a museum shop, and I read it through in one sitting while taking a lot of notes and annotations. And John Paul, he trained as an investigative reporter, worked for several years at the Financial Times and then for the Sunday Times, and has written for many other newspapers and magazines around the world. His work has won several awards and has led directly to changes to UK government policy, actually. So if you would like to learn more about John Paul Flintoff, then check out this website, www.flintoff.org. All right, John Paul, thank you so much for taking your time for this interview. I'm absolutely psyched about your book and having you on the show so I can discuss with you in person the main lessons and ideas in your book.
Brilliant. Well, I'm extremely pleased, and I'm thinking, wow, who is this guy he's introducing? I must hear from this person. So thank you very much for having me.
All right. So the very first question I'd like to ask you: how did you come up with the idea to write a book on how to change the world?
Okay, well, the quick account of that is I got very worried about the planet and about diminishing resources like oil in about 2005. And I wrote a little bit about that for the UK papers. The idea of peak oil now is relatively familiar to many people. Right. Back then, it had never appeared in print in UK newspapers. And I thought, wow, I've got this amazing story and I'll tell people. And then I thought, oh no, this is a terrible story and we'll all have to change the way we live and everything's going to change. And I got quite depressed and I didn't know what to do about it. I wanted to change my life. I wanted to change everyone else's life. I ended up writing a book called Sew Your Own, which was all about my own attempts to be very green. And I was trying to make it accessible and funny by telling how I was going to make all my own clothes, right down to the underpants. And it was kind of signaled in advance, it's funny, it's okay. And that way I could smuggle the green messages in. Mm-hmm. And so that was my first thing. And off the back of that, I was invited to a place I'd never heard of called the School of Life in London, founded by Alain de Bosson. And I thought, wow, this is a cool place. And I did a talk about my book, and talking to the lovely people who run it, it became clear that maybe I could construct some sort of workshop or class on how to make a difference. Right. Somewhat based on my own experience, somewhat based on copious reading that I'd done. So it wasn't all about what I think people should do. Mm-hmm. What I really wanted to do was to come up with a workshop that was about how people find what they want to do. Right. Because as we may discuss shortly, you're not going to stick with something you don't want to do yourself. Right. So you might sign up for it kind of dutifully and think, well, I'll do it for a bit. And then you don't do it for very long. And that's okay. I mean, just be in touch with what you want to do. Anyway, so I set up that class called How to Make a Difference. Mm-hmm. And then after I'd been teaching for a while and getting terribly excited about how brilliant it was to watch people come along and discover what they wanted to do and identify some of the first steps to the things that they could do, I thought I was totally addicted to teaching. Right. And then Alain decided to do a series of books. And one of the people at the school said, would I like to write one of the books in the series? And I said, yeah. And she said, what would you like to write? And slightly, you'll be noticing a theme here. I was being slightly flippant and trying to be funny. I said, oh, I'll do How to Change the World. And it's kind of partly a joke, but because it landed with her as if it was serious, I went, yeah, no, I'll really do that. And I thought, okay, I'll really do that. And it's a big title. Right. It makes a very big claim. Right. But what I think is really useful is for people to remember, I'm not saying they have to change the whole world. Right. Change your world. Aim to change your world. And if it's an example that people like and are inspired by, it will change a bigger world than just that. And anyway, why worry about the world that isn't your world? Right. So that's the kind of point of it. So this second book was about how anyone can find the things that matter to them. It's not about what I think people should do. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay, let's dig a little bit deeper into that question. What do you understand exactly under changing the world, right? I mean, you mentioned it before a little bit, but can anybody change the world, or do we need to aim for becoming the next Steve Jobs, Gandhi, or Mother Teresa?
Thank you for asking that, because I think a lot of people are held back from even thinking about how they might do it by thinking, well, I'm not one of those guys.
Right.
I couldn't do that. But even those guys were once just, Gandhi was going to be an inoffensive lawyer.
Right.
And then his life went in a different direction. It seemed hard to imagine that he would have been a lawyer that nobody ever heard of, because that's how it worked out. But any of us could be as influential as that. Mm-hmm. That may not still ring home for a lot of people. So what I like to point out is that you are already changing the world. In whatever you're doing, you're having that impact and not a different one. So a very, very soft, easy level way of thinking about that is you can walk down the street with a great big smile, or you can walk down the street frowning and scowling or looking at the pavement. Whichever you do has an impact on the people who walk in the opposite direction. So you're having an effect in that sense. But you're also, if you think about an election, you can vote for this party or that party or that party, none of them, but you definitely affect the outcome.
Right.
And people can understand that. That's easy to see because that's an election. But every single day and every single moment, we're having an impact. You're nodding as if what I'm saying might be quite interesting, which is the impact that I'm receiving. If you were going, then that would be a different impact.
Right.
And it's really worth noticing that all the time we're having an impact. So you're encouraging me to think that this stuff is worth thinking. So that's your impact right this second. And so we all are having an impact, whether we like it or not. So what I ask people to think of is, what impact would you like to have? Mm-hmm. And then they can start thinking, well, yeah, okay. And another analogy that I often use is about the power invested in a king. What makes someone a powerful king is not the size of their crown or even the size of their country or how much gold is on their throne. It's the people around them bowing down to them. And if the people who are bowing down or flat on their face get up and stop being submissive to the king, then the same king, without doing anything differently, is no longer a powerful king. Right. And that king is like a metaphor for the status quo. If you don't like the status quo, get up off your face and do something better. Otherwise you might as well stop complaining, because what's the point?
Right. I think the most impressive anecdote you wrote in the book was fairly at the beginning, when you wrote that when you wrote about India and how the British Empire actually overtook India, right? And at that time, the Indian population had around 400 million people, right? And only 30,000 British soldiers, I think, like that, were able to overtake India. So the lessons you draw from Pride provocantly, it was that actually the Indian people were to blame that they gave up, kind of, and that the British Empire overtook India. That's a bold statement, isn't it? But if you look at the mere numbers, you're absolutely right, isn't it?
I love that quote, because that comes from Tolstoy writing a letter to Ghandi when Ghandi was just a young guy who hadn't done that much yet.
Right.
And he said it's impossible for that small number of British to control the Indians without the Indians giving up their power.
Right, definitely.
They have decided to put up with it.
Right. Okay.
When you notice you have a choice.
Right.
And you go, okay, right, so we could do something.
Awesome. Okay, let's tackle the next question. I mean, what you're actually talking about a lot in this book is the right mindset, to have the right mindset. So how can each of us create, develop, and grow that change the world mindset? And and how can we learn this and really learning to have a sense that we can have an impact on the world and our surroundings?
Well, we can notice the things that we don't like. That's a good start. And a lot of the time in our lives, we are encouraged not to go on about bad things because it makes us sound like miserable people.
Right.
Yeah, sure, I agree. Don't go around all the time complaining. But if you don't notice what is the thing that you don't like, then you can't fix it. If you don't know what the problem is, you can't possibly find the solution. Mm-hmm. So what is it you don't like about the world right now? And it can be your world, it can be the world inside your room, it can be the world in your house, how you're getting on with your neighbors, it can be a much bigger sense of the world, it can be the whole country. what is it you don't like? Specifically, what is it you don't like? And keep asking yourself, why is that a problem? What is it that makes it a problem for you? And when you do that, you get down. So you keep on asking the question as if you're a bit of an idiot. Keep asking, why is that a problem? And it'll be things like, well, I hate that some children in the world don't have any food. Why is that a problem? Well, because they should, and you know, everyone's entitled. Okay, so that's what you think. Everyone's entitled to some food. Is that what you think? And then you go, yeah, that's what I think. So what are you going to do about that? And you start with the big grand goal, which sounds like magnificent. You are going to try and feed every child in the world. Oh my God. Well, obviously, you're not going to do it on your own. So finding allies is a whole part of this. Maybe we'll come back to that. But you set yourself the magnificent goal by addressing what the problem is. Mm-hmm. You have to address the problem. So you put your face right up against the fire of that thing that upsets you so that you know what it is. And then you can identify the thing that you would like to make happen. And it's going to be so magnificent that you'll have all of those inner critic thoughts saying, but you're not Ghandi, you're not Martin Luther King, who do you think you are? You know, I mean, how are you ever going to do that? And so you'd say, okay, well, you know, I'm going to do my best. It's okay. If that inner critic was someone else, like imagine it was your enemy, someone you don't like very much, said, you haven't got a hope doing that. You'll never do that. You would probably argue back, wouldn't you?
Right.
So you'd say, well, I may not do it all, but I'm going to have a go. I can do this thing, I can do that thing. And if enough of us try, then we might do something. And you would argue back. But if your inner critic is in your head, you kind of get stuck. And you see people when they're stuck, they're sort of, it's like not moving anywhere.
Right.
And it's like commuters on the train on the way into work.
Mm-hmm.
Total, like they're dead, or like someone pressed the pause button. Mm-hmm. When you know when someone's full of excitement and energy about the thing they want to do, it comes out. It's so obvious. It's okay. You can be depressed. It's not all about being upbeat. Be depressed. Be really depressed about children not having enough food, if that's your thing. It might be something else. And then come out of it by thinking, I'm going to go and do this. But don't just be stuck. Argue with your inner critic.
Right. Okay, awesome. Okay, so let's assume we got the right mindset. How can we know what the first step is that we need to take in order to start changing the world?
Well, the mindset will come and go. That's my first warning, is you'll get a lot of things will make you go, oh, I'm never going to do this. That's okay. Relax, be with those. It's okay. Just be with the fact that you feel depressed. That's okay. Don't beat yourself up about it. Right. It will come out. Focus on the long-term goal. Know that may not come about exactly like that, because time changes things. Someone may invent something that makes it possible to feed all the children. You don't then need to be depressed because what you wanted was happening anyway. Or there'll be something that happens that deviates you. So this isn't like your only goal and your only mission for the whole of your life.
Right.
It's what you're worried about now, what you're concentrating on now, what you're going to make into a good thing now. And then you start to think, how can you break it down into small steps? Like, what's the smallest possible first step? Mm-hmm. So if it's about feeding all the children in the world, now I'm going to give up on that example because that makes it sound as if that's the only one there is. And it's not. Changing the world could be just about making your street more beautiful. So if it's about making my street more beautiful, it's partly to do with there being just a lot of litter left lying around. Mm-hmm. So one really small step is just every day I'll go out and pick up one bit of litter.
Right.
It's not a big deal. By the way, that's not my mission. I've thought about the litter one. It's not going to get me really motivated. But if it was my mission, I would be out there picking up litter like a crazy man.
Right.
So I'm making it up. Everyone knows what the thing is that most troubles them. So with me, for changing the planet and getting everyone to be more sustainable and so on, it was about teaching people how to make their own stuff, how to repair things, how to grow their own foods. And so that was the thing that I was doing.
Got it.
And now I'm doing other things. So you do move on, but the point is, what you're driving at here is to be more in touch with what feels to you like a meaningful life.
Right.
And it only feels meaningful to you individually. Nobody watching externally can tell if it's meaningful or not. Mm-hmm. So I kind of often use the example of walking your neighbor's dog. You could walk your neighbor's dog because it's kind of become a boring duty and you're a bit fed up. And you've walked that way before and you know what all the roads look like and you're not interested and you don't like the dog very much. Or you can walk the neighbor's dog because it will make them really happy because they're a bit unwell and they need some help and you feel like $1 million because you're walking this dog. Right. And then, so the meaning changes because of you deciding what the meaning is. When you're in touch with doing something meaningful, all sorts of wonderful things happen. You feel better all around. So keep on thinking, why am I doing this? What am I doing this for? And you might find a good reason why you're doing it. And then when you're in touch with the good reason why you're doing it, you can stop feeling quite so much like a victim of circumstance. Like, oh God, I wish I didn't have this job. It's really awful. And then you go, well, what am I doing it for? Well, I'm doing it because it's bringing in an income so that I can afford to do painting at the weekend, or whatever your reason is. Right. Start to notice what's meaningful for you.
Okay, awesome, great. I mean, lastly, I'd like to talk about your workshops that you're conducting in London. How long do these workshops last? What do they exactly learn, and what is the outcome goal, the goal in terms of outcome at the end of the workshop, and how can people register for those?
Well, the most of the workshops I do are through the School of Life, and if you look on the School of Life website, you will see a huge range of classes which we teach that are not generally available at an ordinary educational institution.
Right.
A great example of that is we have one class called How to Be Cool, and it's brilliant, and the guy who runs it is brilliant, and I don't run it, sadly. You can probably tell. I do things like how to make a difference, how to have better conversations, how to realize your potential. Nice. And increasingly recently, I've been using my training in improvisational theatre and in making things. So I run a how to improvise class.
Okay.
And the thing with improvisation is you use whatever you've got.
Right.
And when you realize that everything you've got has value, the world looks like it's full of the most abundant possibility. And so what I'm asking people to notice is that they're already ready, they have what they need, and you can also generate a lot of laughter in these workshops. So have a look at the School of Life website. If you can't find what you're after there, you may find out more on my website about the sorts of things I do.
Awesome. And have you ever thought of extending your range, going to other cities such as Vienna or something, to conduct workshops there as well?
We have a lot of interest from other people around the world in doing franchises of the School of Life. I think some of them are starting. We've had in Australia and Brazil pop-up versions of the School of Life. Nice. I have personally been, not as part of the School of Life, just as me, to other countries doing things as well. And yeah, I love it.
Okay, awesome.
Let me support a workshop in Vienna.
Yeah, that would be great. So let's keep in touch. Maybe we can set up something. I'd love to do something like that. So John Paul Flintoff, do I pronounce the name Flintoff correctly, or is it?
Sounded good to me. Flintoff, yes.
Flintoff, all right, okay. Thank you so much for sharing your precious ideas so generously with us. And if you guys loved this episode as much as I did, then please, please, please buy his book, right? How to Change the World. I'll put the Amazon link right below the video. And furthermore, if you want to find out more about John Paul and his work, then please visit flintoff.org, FLINTOFF.org. And lastly, if you'd like to learn more practical, inspiring stuff from unconventional people like him, then please subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit us at howtobecomeaprofessor.com. And please always remember, aim for making an impact and not a career. Thank you so much.